Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, and it's good to see you today, Daniel.
Good to see you, Dr. Paul.
Good. I'd like to talk today a little bit about the use of military force. You know, we always talk about that, especially since 9/11 or even the Vietnam War. Where does the government get this authority to initiate force? Even as far back as Korea, they got it from the United Nations. So we've been fighting this battle a long time. But in modern days, it's token wars, and where do they get the authority for it? And of course, there was the authority to use military force after 9/11. But if there's ever been a law abused, it's been that. So this debate is ongoing over Syria because they've been, there's a military operation there. They don't follow, even what they tried to correct the problems of Vietnam with, and that was the War Powers Resolution. They ignore it, and Congress doesn't care, and the presidents don't report. So that's where we stand. But in Britain right now, there's a debate going on. The generals are expressing themselves, and they want to get this authority. But it looks like Cameron might be sort of in a box where he knows what politics is all about. He knows that things didn't work very well, a year or so ago, and he couldn't get authority to bomb. He was embarrassed, so he's very cautious. But what do you see coming up with this? Do you think that there will be a vote, or will it be clarified, and we'll find out one way or the other which way Britain's going to go?
Yeah, it's very interesting because, as you say, back in 2013, when they sought authorization to strike Syria after this phony gas attack that was blamed on the government, Parliament voted him down. And then a year later, last year, there's a new rise of ISIS, and the U.S. has got to go in, and their partners, the UK, has got to go in and fight ISIS. So he had the initial authority for the airstrikes based on that. But that authority is running out for the UK. And Cameron is in a bind because he wants to, of course, follow the U.S. dictates. But the problem for him, this is going to surprise you, Dr. Paul, the problem for him, he does not have the votes in Parliament to extend the authority. So he simply told the generals in the military, I don't have the authority, this will have to end.
Well, that's pretty magnificent that actually has an effect on their thinking, because I think they're a little bit better off than we are in this country, because we in many ways are facing the same set of circumstances, because the president doesn't have the explicit authority. A little while ago there was a resolution in the Senate passed out of committee to limit the use of military force, but it never went to the floor, never got a vote. And interestingly enough, in that authority to allow him to do the bombing, it says no troops on the ground. Wow. And that might have been one of the reasons why that was not passed, but they're still working hard. And Senator Corker, who's instrumental in all this, he said, well, he sort of leans toward having a vote, but there's no urgency for this. He says, we'll just set it back. And he used the words like, he and the Congress feels like the president, if he really needed it, he'd be asking it for it, and he hasn't asked for it. And I keep thinking, just think of the upside down approach. If our president is doing something unconstitutional without authority, no declaration of war, and the opposition party against the president the Republicans are supposed to detest, and he's off running these wars, and they say, well, if he doesn't need the authority, we won't do it. And this debate, would you say that this debate is minor in this country compared to at least a little bit of debate in England?
Well, there's no debate. I wonder if Senator Corker thinks that the Article 1 of the Constitution is just a set of suggestions.
Well, maybe it is anachronistic, that part of the Constitution. Yeah. As you recall, I was told, forget about that, Ron, that part of the Constitution on declaring war, that's anachronistic. So there's a bit of that going on. But and if we did have a resolution passed, let's say we had some miracle happen and we repealed the authority to use military force, as the presidents are hiding behind. I personally wouldn't feel that much better because there's so much secrecy, so much going on. The CIA is so much involved, and the special forces are all over the place. So they might pander to the people and say, "Oh, look, we got rid of this, and we'll be careful. Like we'll never torture again, and we will be angels." But I don't think we'll pass a resolution like that. I think the American people are way too complacent. I wish we could do more to wake them up and say, "Look, this can get out of hand, and it's close to it." I mean, with aircraft being shot out of the sky and who knows what. They say ISIS participated in the downing of this Russian plane. You know, so much of our weaponry and our support has gone to the enemy, whether it's intentional or not. Sometimes I think the CIA obviously works with our enemies in a pretense to help, you know, defeat Assad. But if that gets out, who knows what this could lead to? So this is crucial on authority. But you know, I blame many decades of sloppy thinking, and I blame a lot on internationalism, because when the United Nations was established to maintain peace in the world, one of the very first things they did was to give authority to go to war in Korea, and we're still spending money on that war, and there's still antagonism there. So that doesn't look like the answer. It's different now because we're fighting smaller wars, and we can go and use secret wars, and we don't know what's going on in this particular time. But I think the crime is every bit as bad, and I hope someday that people will think, well, how are we supposed to be doing this?
You know, the State Department goes around the world lecturing other countries about the need to have the rule of law. You've got to have a government that follows the rule of law. Yet it's astonishing that the American people are not rising up about this blatant violation of the Constitution, which is the law. It's not a set of suggestions. You know, as I understand it, President Obama claims the authority to bomb Syria and even send troops into Syria. He looks to authority for the 2001 authorization for the use of force against those that attacked us on 9/11, which doesn't make sense logically, because fighting ISIS is a group that didn't exist then, and the administration has gone to great pains to remind us that ISIS and Al-Qaeda are very different things. So which is it? Are they the same or are they different?
And yet, you know, I think there's a presidential election going on right now, but there's not much debate on these issues. At least Rand has introduced a bill that would repeal outright the authority to use military force. But think about the two parties outside of what his position has been. The two parties are there. Who's the hawkish party? Is it Hillary? Is she the peace candidate? I mean, Obama got away with it. You know, I'm going to stop these wars. Here he didn't stop two wars and added another one to it. But here, the people who are hawkish and neo-conish, you know, they're pushing this. So they're going to have a choice probably of Hillary and what other candidate, especially the top tier candidate, would take a position. So it is monopolized on this. And you know, even though everybody's cheering on Trump, I don't trust him for a minute that he would be less hawkish. He might be, you know, I don't mess around, folks, and I'll take care of this. He might even be less willing to go through the process of getting authority because he's used to this. But I think there's it's a shame that this is not a debate in the political process, and there's only a few that do it. And if there are a few that speak out or introduce legislation, they don't get the coverage, because guess what? The political parties are dominated by the warmongers, and the media is dominated by the warmongers. The military-industrial complex has tremendous control. So to me, it's a sad situation, but hopefully we can break through and get information out.
I remember you gave a speech, I don't know, a number of years ago that I always think back on. It was tracing how popular peace candidates, the message of peace is for a candidate. And we saw it with Obama, we saw it with Bush, we saw it going back through we talked about this on the show. And so I wonder what they're thinking. You look at, we're talking about a poll that just came out today. 6 in 10 people are opposed to Obama's Syria policy.
Right.
And it's interesting, actually, when you look at the opposition, it's from the right and the left, or however you want to talk, the warmongers and the peaceniks. The warmongers want him to go in full force, and the peaceniks say this is a quagmire. that it's very dangerous. And I was going to ask you what you think about this as it relates to the need to seek authorization. He didn't seek authorization, and now he's getting hit from both sides.
Yeah, I think we should expect that, that to happen because they've dug a hole for themselves and they don't take a principled stand. The only principle they have is intervention. They agree on intervention, and they had to, how are we going to appease the people or fool the people and trick the people? You talk about the peace candidates. I remember so clearly Nixon's campaign in 1960. We had Eugene McCarthy get LBJ bumped out, and then there was this campaign, and the peace candidate then was to change the party. Richard Nixon was elected to stop the war. And I heard a playback just the other day of a short speech right after he was elected. "You have elected me, to stop the war in Vietnam." And then it went on year after year after year, more turmoil in this country, and another 30,000 killed. What horrible, ugly deception. So this is the reason that we have to work desperately hard to use the tools that we have. And one of the tools, of course, is the internet, because we can get around the establishment. But it's not an easy task to deal with.
Yeah, that is true.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today. And once again, Daniel and I talked about, the foreign policy we have and the lack of following the rule of law and the willingness of our president to get involved in war without consent with the people. And also, the point that I made is the tragedy of the U.S. Congress not doing almost nothing, not doing anything at all, to call attention to this and to restrain the president. That should have been the purpose. And the constitutionality of war, it is just never considered anymore. And as I alluded to in our conversation one time when I was fighting the declaration or the determination to go to war against Syria, when I brought up the Constitution, I was put down by the chairman saying, "Oh, that part, right?" He said, "That part of the Constitution is anachronistic, and we don't follow that anymore." And that is the attitude, and it's pervasive. And yet Daniel pointed out where the majority of the people right now are expressing themselves in Britain. At the same time, the majority of the American people don't want the war. And if they had an up or down vote, they'd vote against it. And they were told about the potential bombing, just a couple years ago, and it was stopped. But Obama went and did it anyway. He's a lawless president. He just does it anyway. But unfortunately, right now, I don't see a full debate in the presidential campaign about why we should be arguing the case for peace over this war and restrain the presidents. It was given to us, the people, to restrain the president from going to war. That was a big issue in our revolution. The king, and today our king is our president, can't go to war without the consent of the people through the legislative branch. Unfortunately, we have a long way to go on that, but the one thing in our favor is the majority of the American people agree with us that we should not allow our presidents to go to war so carelessly. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.